In 1889, a boy of 14 came here to one of the great mountains of his native Switzerland. It was a moment of revelation which stayed with him all his life. He saw in these mountains and valleys an image of the heights to which the human spirit could aspire, and the depths through which it had to travel in order to fulfill its greatest purposes. It was a moment in which he felt outside time and space. The scene for him was like a reflection in a mirror of the immense hidden world within modern man, an intimation of a future in which he was to become one of the greatest explorers of the neglected human soul. An explorer of the world, where the mind has mountains, cliffs of fall, frightful, sheer, no man fathomed. His name was Carl Gustav Jung. Here, in 1933, a completely new phase in the life of Jung began. At last, he was ready. He had the facts. This instinct which he had as a young student at Basel University, not to talk out of his feelings anymore, but to talk out of facts. He had gained all the experience he needed at the Burghölzli. He'd gone out into the world, he'd gained the experience from private patients. He'd done an immense amount of research into history, and he was ready now to talk to the world, no longer to a privileged set of patients and people who believed in him. And on this spot, on the shores of Lake Maggiore, in the Casa Gabriella, he found the perfect platform to speak on. Here, a remarkable Dutch woman called Olga Fröbe-Kaptein had started a sort of Platonic philosophic group where scholars from all over the world came to talk on a common theme for about 10 days. They lived together, and people came from all over Europe and the world to listen to them. But somehow, always to her, it seemed a voice, a really important voice, was missing. And in 1932, she went to see Jung in Zurich, and he agreed to come and talk. And one of the most interesting things about this establishment at Eranos was that for the 10 days or 12 days through which it took place, people met and gathered after lectures in particular places to talk. But the favorite place of talking was over here at this wonderful round table which you see here. This is exactly the table as it was when Jung first knew it, and as I knew it when I spoke here myself. People would come and sit round this table, and they would talk. Now, the round table meant a great deal to Jung, as it means a great deal in human thinking, because it is a symbol of wholeness. And people sitting round a round table were partaking together of the food of wholeness. They were becoming whole in the principle. Jung was now 58. The imposing number of his books and essays showed how the long years of work as a psychiatrist and interpreter of human dreams and myths had given him a unique vantage point for surveying the problems of his time. Here at Eranos, no matter what aspect of his work they discussed, all ultimately was concerned with the concept of wholeness. And never before had the integrity of European man been in greater danger. In Germany and Italy, the terrifying spectacle of the Nazi and fascist hordes, was there to remind them all of what happens when men fail to digest the bitter ingredient of their despised and rejected selves. Jung had a simple word to describe this ingredient. He called it the shadow. He had already worked through his own area of neglect and faced the problem it presented so honestly that he actually painted this portrait of the shadow within the basement of his own unconscious. Almost to a day, Dr. Jung died in this house. Then, as now, it seemed as if nature recognized the event. A great thunderstorm swept over Zurich. Lightning crashed and destroyed one of his favorite trees in the garden just over here, where he used to sit. And it was symbolically in the unconscious of hundreds of people who'd known him and read him, as if a great ship had gone down and dragged towards it, like flotsam and jetsam on the sea, all sorts of strange dreams and portents to accompany the event. But what was even more significant was the fact that 3 days before he died, Dr. Jung, who had been quite well, had perhaps the last of the dreams that could be communicated to men. He had just finished his last written work, a work on symbols. And the dream came to him, the first of which showed him high up in a high place, a round boulder, a great boulder of stone. And on this stone was inscribed the words, "Take this as a symbol of your wholeness and the singleness you've become." And the same night he dreamt another dream. He dreamt that he saw in a square, the square that was also a symbol of wholeness, trees rising and growing, and the roots coming up above the ground. And the roots were intertwined with gold, the symbol of resolution, the alchemical symbol of wholeness. The collective unconscious was saying to him, as it were, "You've done your work, and you've done it well."